And we are live. Michelle Lee, welcome to the show. Welcome to Become Your Own Superhero.
Thanks, Laban. It's my pleasure and privilege.
Well, the line's a bit crackly, Michelle. It sounds like you're in somewhere where cell reception isn't the best. Are you able to tell our audience exactly where you are as we speak?
Well, if you want to get really specific, I'm at latitude 3 degrees 20 minutes 6:58 seconds and longitude 175 degrees 55 minutes 85 seconds west. So I'm literally in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. I'm about 120 nautical miles north of the equator, and with the goal to head to Australia. So I am on board an ocean rowing boat in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
It still tickles me pink every time I hear that, Michelle. And you heard that right, folks. Michelle is on a satellite phone in the middle of the ocean. She's made a special, dedicated call for our very, very blessed audience today. And for what will be a podcast first for me, broadcasting in from some remote location, completely by yourself. And what day are you on now, Michelle?
Today is day 120. So I departed Mexico on the 8th of August. And it's the longest I've ever been alone in my life.
I'm guessing 120 days by yourself allows for quite a lot of self-reflection. I've had. What are some of the most? What's some of the most profound self-reflections that you've figured out?
Well, look, I know that I'm very stubborn. I know that when I'm given a task, I become quite obsessed with that task. So, it's sort of like a good trait to call on in these sort of circumstances, I guess. And, I'm learning that patience is, critical. Becoming able to accept what is. I'm not in control. So learning, just to accept the conditions and Mother Nature, she's the boss. So really, I guess, in order to save energy and whatnot, acceptance over resistance is a big thing that I'm learning out here. Learning not to resist it and just go with the flow, It is what it is, and you can only do what you can do. And at the end of each day, I sort of reflect on that day and sort of say, well, I know that I've done the best I can today. And you go to bed happy with that. So, these are the things that I'm learning out here. It's patience, it's acceptance, and draw on all of your traits that you have. The stubbornness is actually a really good trait right now for me. But also, just to know that this is really such a privilege to be able to do this in my lifetime, to take myself out of first world and for this length of time and to actually do this. It's, with thanks to so many people that helped me get to the start line. But it really is, honestly, such a privilege.
Well, we are so grateful that you've decided to do this. It's not the first time you've been out on the boat by yourself. You completed one other trip a few years back. Can you share with us what happened on that journey?
Yeah, so 2018, I did the Atlantic row, which was 3,000 nautical miles. And I guess that was my intro to ocean rowing. It was very different to this one, the Atlantic versus the Pacific. Very, very different experiences in terms of just the ocean, What I'm finding is the Pacific Ocean is extremely demanding. It's extremely hectic versus the Atlantic. The Atlantic was a piece of cake if I compare them. But mentally, I'm in a very different headspace and very different position versus the Atlantic. So, I really didn't do any head work any mental work for the Atlantic. I honestly thought that it would just be my happy place. I thought that I didn't really like people that much, and I thought, imagine being in a world without the demands of social media, emails, texting, phone calls, having to get back when I was running a business, having to get back to people, having to live up to the demands of people. And I honestly just thought, oh my God, this is going to be my heaven, when in actual fact, the isolation factor was my biggest challenge. And because I had sort of not done any mental work, I struggled big time. So I guess doing the Atlantic first, it sort of highlighted my weaknesses. It highlighted the areas that I would need to really strengthen if I was going to go into another ocean. And on day 23, strangely enough, in the middle of the Atlantic, I sort of did throw that seed out there, and I did say, if I was to roll another ocean, what would I do differently? And here I am. So be careful what you wish for. Be careful what you put out there to the universe, right? But I prepared for this one. I prepared mentally. I did, the Jose Silva course, and I practiced it for 2 years diligently. I got very familiar with all of the techniques. I've, been very Dr. Joe Dispenza's. I've read a lot of Dr. Joe Dispenza, Bruce Lipton, Greg Braden. So I certainly put myself in a very different position mentally, and I can say that it's paid off. I've really done this row across the Pacific so far, 120 days in, mentally very strong. I haven't had any meltdowns. I haven't had any breakdowns, where I was having them every second day on the Atlantic, So, yeah, it pays off to do your homework. It pays off to source and seek the professional courses that you're going to need, and then to obviously practice it, have the time to practice it, which is, I think, the beauty of what I did was, really getting familiar and having the trust and the faith in what you've just invested in. So that's the main difference, is I've done the head work, and I was so grateful.
Well, it's so interesting. As you were sharing that, Michelle, I was thinking, what value would it have been to have been taught a lot of the stuff that Joe Dispenza, the Silva Method, Bruce Lipton, in school as we're kids growing up, and teaching us resilience and mindfulness and all the other amazing power that is derived from these things. And we kind of have to find it accidentally in life's journey, and quite often we don't find it until we're deep into our adulthood. And it's a shame, really, isn't it? Because prior to doing these rows, you don't come from a background of professional rowing, do you?
No. So, when I decided I was going to row across the Atlantic, I had never, ever held an oar in my hands. I'd never, the most rowing I'd ever done was on a Concept 2 erg in the gym, where you smash yourself to the point where you think when you get off that machine, you're just going to die, And that was my relationship with rowing. It was virtually in a gym where you do 2 minutes max effort, go, 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 and then you have a real hate relationship with that the rowing machine. So when I decided to row the Atlantic, I learned to row properly on the erg, and I committed to doing the world record, the 1 million metre world record, which, that was ticking a lot of boxes for me. It was, teaching me the rowing technique, which is extremely technical, to do it properly, and to do it for an extended period, you have to do it properly, otherwise you're going to be injured in no time. So for 6 months I trained on that erg, and I followed a very specific program. It was 13 sessions a week. It was every Sunday for 8 hours I rowed to a specific time and cadence. Every Monday I was on that erg for 6 hours, and then every other day of the week I was on there doing, an undulating program. So it also got my body ready for long-distance semi-endurance. You know, my body had to adapt to becoming that long-distance semi-endurance athlete, as opposed to, you know, I had more of the quick muscle fibers, more a sprint-style body. So, but also it taught me the importance of nutrition and hydration. So during that 6 months, I worked out exactly how many grams of carbs I would need per hour, how many mils of liquid I would need, and I had a sports nutritionist. So it's really important to connect with the professionals and just take the guesswork out of it, because it's pure science. It really is. So, you know, what does 1,000,000 metres, a world record on an erg look like? It was 5.5 days, rowing 14 hours a day at a pace of 2:30 per 500 metres, 18 to 20 strokes a minute. So that's what I did. I did 5.5 days on that erg, starting at 6 a.m. in the morning, rowing through till 10 p.m. at night. And I rowed in 3-hour sets. So I did 4 sets of 3 hours with a very strict timed half-hour break in between. And then I finished the evening with a 2-hour row. And in between all of that, you know, you're stuffing down your nutrition. I had to have 45 grams of carbs per hour with a full 2,000 calorie meal at the end in the half-hour break. So it was, you know, full on, and it taught me so much. Plus, not to mention the mental resilience to sit on that machine for that many hours, you know, in that lead up, in that 6 month lead up. And then, of course, you know, I was building a boat at the same time. I was, you know, getting my boat prepped. So I'm sort of preparing my body. I'm sort of trying to get some sort of credibility by doing the world record. I thought, you know, I've got to tick many boxes here. I've got to get some credibility because, you know, I'm knocking on sponsors' doors asking for people to back me. And they say, well, what have you done? Who are you? So that's why, you know, it was suggested to go and get the world record. So at least you could say, well, I'm the world record holder for 1,000,000 metre, you know, and blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, we launched my boat in April 2017, and that is literally the first time I'd ever put an oar in water. So then the learning began again. You know, the learning begins again. We've got to now learn how to row a boat in a very, you know, not on smooth water. It has to be on rough water to mimic the ocean.
I wonder if you'd started out on the Pacific Ocean, given how much more intense and rough it is, that you would have considered doing the Atlantic 14,000 kilometre.
Yeah, I wonder myself, and I actually don't think so. I reckon I would have done this and gone, that's it, I'm done. But, you know, I had a really nice time on the Atlantic, predominantly, most of the time. When I look back at all my footage, you know, most of the time I was really having a lovely day, a lovely time. And then pretty much from day 46, between day 46 and when I finished day 68, that's where my struggles began. But it's because, you know, things were going wrong with my boat. I was worried about my rudder falling off. I was, you know, my foot steering fell apart. I had to rebuild my foot steering. I was, you know, worried about my autopilot burning out. So all these things just, and your mind, you know, what I learned was you've got to learn how to control your mind. You really do. It can really get away from you and, you know, create high anxiety. I started to imagine things happening that, you know, never happened. And so that's what made me realise I need to learn the power of mind control. I can't control the environment. I can't control what Mother Nature does. But I had to control me and you know, have some techniques to draw on in those moments before it gets out of hand, before the anxiety becomes full-blown and, you know, to the point of almost no return, which is pretty much what happened on the Atlantic from day 46 onwards. I struggled so much with anxiety. It was just high anxiety, and I've never suffered with anxiety in my life. So I'm not sure if this was my first row. I don't even know that I would have coped. Certainly without the mental training that I've done, I definitely would not have coped. In fact, I think the first week I would have probably had to have aborted the mission. You know, in the first week I would have been close enough to land to row back into land and I probably would have had to abort mission, truth be known.
Fantastic. I shake my head in disbelief every time I speak to you, Michelle, and been privileged to be on the receiving end of a couple of phone calls now while you're out in the middle of nowhere, and it blows my mind. You know, I've met and interviewed some spectacularly brilliant, fascinating people, and there's no one like you. There is no one like you. And I know there's a couple of questions I have that I know people will be very curious to know. As it stands right now, it's pretty early in the morning. Is the sun up yet?
I'm sorry, did you say it's very early in the morning? It's 5:30 a.m. It's still pitch black here.
It's still okay. Because I was going to ask you what you can see, but given it's dark, what was the last thing that you could see before the sun went down last night?
Oh, so while I say it's pitch black, I mean like there's no sun in the sky. However, there is a half moon, and it sheds so much light. It's got a veil of cloud over it, but when I look out, it's actually quite light thanks to the moon. And you know, on a full moon, it's just spectacular. Oh my goodness, it's really bright, actually. And you know, I've got this gigantic hatch with opaque perspex, so you know the light, you know, basically comes straight through my cabin. My cabin is lit up. But yeah, so you know, the sun goes down, and depending on how much cloud there is, will sort of dictate and where the moon's at and what stage is the moon at. But you know, generally of a night time, I stick my head out my hatch several times of a night time just to check the horizon, make sure there's no shipping, make sure there's, you know, nothing that I need to be concerned about. And I always look out and I look up at the sky and I catch myself having an oh wow moment, and it's literally like, oh wow. I do it like it's the first time I've ever seen it. You look up at the night sky and the stars are just phenomenal. Like it's truly an amazing universe, and I'm in awe every single time I see it. There's nothing like it, you know, being in the middle of the ocean. And on those nights where there is no moon, or the moon's, you know, very small, the stars are, you know, more brilliant. But yeah, it's quite phenomenal, and it's not as scary as people think. You know, they imagine being in the Northern Ocean at night time by yourself. It's something that I think once you experience it, you go, oh yeah, it's actually not such a big deal. But in your imagination, when you've never experienced it, I can appreciate that it's like, oh my God, that would be so horrendously frightening. But yeah, I promise you I'm the world's biggest scaredy cat, and it's really not that bad.
Well, we're live streaming, obviously, and I've got this beautiful photograph of you out on the high seas. I've positioned myself so that we can see the boat, the still picture, while we're broadcasting your voice through the phone, which is so inspiring. And I'd love to know, Michelle, what's something really, really embarrassing that you haven't shared with anyone else that you've been doing whilst on the boat?
Oh, there's many things. So you become a bit animalistic, right? So you kind of eat like an animal. You kind of manners and stuff just go out the window, you know. And you know, I make a pot of porridge in the morning for my breakfast. So it's, you know, it's oats, and I put rice in there because I'm actually rationing my oats out now. I've only got 44 serves of oats left. And so I'm bulking it up with rice so that I can drag out my 44 serves to hopefully 80 serves, you know what I mean, to last me the distance. So, but I also put some dried fruit in there, you know, whether it's some dates or some mango or dried apple. And normally at home you'd take out the chopping board and you would just chop it up into little, you know, fine bits and then add it. No, not on board Australian Made. What I do is I just do it in my mouth. I nip between my front teeth, nibble, make it small bits, and then just spit it straight into my pot, my thermo flask. That's how I chop up my fruit. You know, so should we. socially very unacceptable. And what else? The other morning I had the pleasure of taking a morning ablution with a bird on board. So I had this beautiful big bird on board, and he just chose to sit on my deck, right up the front at the bow where my bucket is. You know, my toilet facilities is bucket and chuck it, keep it simple. And I had to venture up there to go to the toilet, and I'm thinking, I don't know if he's going to attack me because, you know, I don't know, he's not humanised, right? And how he even found my boat and landed on my boat during the night is like, wow. But anyway, so I go up there and I'm sitting on my bucket next to him. I had to actually video it because I'm thinking, you know, here I am with my new mate taking a crap on my bucket in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. People just won't believe this. This just ain't normal. And, so anyway, I don't know how many people will get to actually see that footage. But I did video it because even in my own mind, I thought this is just too unreal to be true. So yeah, more than anything, it's just, you know, away with manners, and you just do what you got to do, and they're most socially unacceptable, really, the behaviour.
Yeah, it's hilarious with the animals. Sometimes when I've been out in nature and animals caught my eye, if I'm taking a number 2, for example, sometimes you feel like they're judging you, and maybe that's what you experience as well. Do you do any singing out on the ship there on the boat?
Sorry, do I do any...
Singing. Do you sing?
Singing. Oh, singing. Oh, my goodness. Blame it on Spotify, I say. So since day 31, I've had no music at all. I was on the understanding with Spotify, if you downloaded all your material and you kept your subscription open, you can listen to your stuff offline for as long as your subscription is open. No, that's not the case, people. You have to log on to that device every 30 days, and I don't have internet out here. So it was a bit of a rude awakening to realise that, you know, on day 31, oh shit, I actually have 0 music. So yes, I do sing by myself without music, and I never ever know the right words to songs. My flatmate, she would hear me singing at home, and she would just be correcting me in the background what the real words are. And I'm like, oh, that doesn't even sound right. You know, mine always sound much better, of course. So here I am, yes, I sing at the top of my lungs, and I only ever know a few words of the verse. I sing completely out of tune. I have no ear for music. So all that I can say is blame it on Spotify.
Well, I'm afraid to tell you, Michelle, that had you asked me that question, I would have been able to tell you that was the case. So I'm sorry that you found out the hard way, but there's a silver lining in all of these dark moments, I'm sure, because you've got a number of audiobooks that you've been able to listen to which haven't been cut off. How many books have you got on your Audible?
Yeah, I've got 37 titles, and they were all very carefully selected and very consciously selected. So I've listened to all of them. I've lost count how many times now. So they're just on a loop now, and I just alternate between, where I want to go with my mind. I've got learn Spanish. So can I get off my boat and be able to speak basic Spanish? Well, I don't know about that. We'll see how that goes.
Sí, señorita.
I've also got lots of Joe Dispenza's material, Dr. Bruce Lipton, Greg Braden. So I should be very zen when I get off. I've done so many hours of guided meditation while I'm out there rowing. And, you think, really, it's the perfect environment. I'm removed from all of life's distractions. And here I am in full-blown Mother Nature, back to, just basics. And I'm listening to this really powerful material about, mind, neuroplasticity, power of the mind, healing yourself. And it's really quiet to listen to it under these circumstances versus at home with distractions and with, life around you. It's very, very different. You take in so much more out here. And the more I listen to it, even though I've listened to them so many times, I still pick up things. And it's like I have these light bulb moments like, oh, I get that now. Because they're very big concepts, you know. They're powerful and big concepts. And, you know, like waking up in 5D with Maureen St. Germain, it's just all huge concepts to grasp. And sometimes it even feels like a new language, which obviously now I've listened to it so many times that it's getting more and more familiar. So there's definitely much benefit in being able to do what I'm doing in these circumstances and the conditions, and, you know, far removed from people and the clutter and the noise of first world, you know, just the influence of, you know, social media. And I mean, I don't watch TV anyway, and I have not had a TV since 2011 by choice. So I'm not influenced by anything on TV at all. I have no desire to ever own one. I have no desire to sit in front of one and watch one. I don't like the shit that comes out of them, and made that decision in 2011. And so, you know, I'm not influenced by that. And in fact, before I left, I don't listen to a radio, I don't watch TV, and I don't read a newspaper. So, you know, I'm very ignorant to what goes on in the world, and there's a conscious decision that I'm very, very happy with. So I guess, you know, in terms of how much did you have to give up to do this, well, my mind was already conditioned to not having all of that clutter. However, I did have people, you know, you get involved in people's lives and their stories and their dramas and stuff. So I'm removed from that largely, and all my people who I speak to on my sat phone, they all know that I don't want to know one headline of the world. I don't want to know what's on in the world. I don't care to know if we've got a new Prime Minister or if China's been bombed, or, you know, I just don't want to know any news of the world. So I say to them, don't tell me about any deaths, births or marriages. Don't tell me about any headlines. So it's going to be really strange when I come back, you know, when I do reach land, and I'm literally the only news of the world that I've received, and this is from one of my Mexican friends. They sent a text message saying the Queen is dead, and that's the only headline that I know. So yeah, it's going to be strange, but yeah, my listening material is all just really powerful stuff, and I love it as much as I did the first day, you know. I'm still learning stuff from it. So I wish I had more books, though. I do wish I did have some more. But anyway, it is what it is, and I'll just get to know this material very well.
Well, I got a funny feeling that you're going to do another one of these, Michelle, and maybe a conversation between Spotify and Amazon Audible to load you up on whatever it is that you need that won't expire. And I wanted to bring this up. I know one of the books on your list is my book, Bet on You, and I'm curious to know how that has impacted positively or negatively your rowing so far.
You know what? When I'll scroll through the playlist, and depending what mindset you're in, depends on what book I go to. I'm drawn to titles, right, based on my mindset at that time. Yours is a go-to book when I need to have a laugh, when I do need a distraction, and I just need my mind just to be able to go off and light-hearted listening. I go to your book, even though in your book, whilst I laugh, I've cried as well, you know, because it's so raw, and you're so, like, you just, vulnerability, it's full of vulnerable moments and real moments where you share, you know, the deepest, darkest moments in your life. But you mix it so beautifully and balance it out so beautifully with the funny side of life, and the way you tell the story. Oh my goodness. You literally have had me laughing and crying. And, you know, I've even done, oh no, you know, when you tell a story. And I get very involved with it. And, I've I'm grateful that I have it on my playlist because it's one that I'll go to when I need to be uplifted, or I just need to be able to be in that frame of mind where you just sort of, you're just lifting and you don't have to concentrate. When I listen to, say, Greg Braden, I'm concentrating. I'm in a very, concentration sort of state of mind where I'm trying to take it in and trying to sort of make sense of some of the stuff. So, yeah, no, I'm loving your book, and I know I'll hear it again before I finish. And it made me, when I finished reading it and listening to it, I thought, oh, man, I so want to do an ultra marathon with you. I just think it would be such a fucking blast.
Well, I promise I didn't set Michelle up for this. This is amazing, and my first ever testimonial from the middle of the Pacific Ocean. So thank you very much for that huge shout out. Speaking of books, Michelle, yours has just hit the shelves. Can you tell us about this amazing creation that's just come out?
Oh, well, I guess we can say, first of all, thanks to Jeremy Carter. So Jeremy is a life coach, and he so generously donated his time once a week for months. He caught up with me just to keep me on track, and he generously donated it, and he did it with so much love and just genuine care and concern, and and he literally kept me on track. And every week at the same time he'd ring and he'd say, right, where are we at, and what are we struggling with? And what are we to do? What's the priority? So he helped me sort all that shit out in my head that sometimes can feel completely overwhelming. And one day we were sitting there and he said to me, so you got to write a book. And I said, there's a project that I sort of started and, I put it away because I don't want to read. I said, I don't really know where to start. While I'm sitting there bitching and moaning about, I don't even know where to start. He's sitting there scribbling on a piece of paper the blueprint how to write a book. And he scribbled it around, pushed it across the table, and said, there you go, there's your book. Well, I followed it, and because I had him each week to be accountable to and to answer to, and I didn't want to disappoint him because he was donating this to me, right? He's generously giving of his time. So I thought, okay, shit, I've got to write this freaking book now. And call it a COVID project. It all, during COVID, it sort of, so is this, by the way, my preparation for the road. All this happened during COVID. Wow. And so now I am tapping away at my laptop every day, writing this book until, before you know it, lo and behold, it's finished. And I had two of my beautiful friends, Molly and Susie. They were my proofreaders. So I used to send chunks of it to Susie. She would proofread it first, and then she would forward it on. She'd make all the adjustments and make it look good, and then she'd send it to Molly, who would do a final proofread. And then I got introduced to Michael Wilkinson from Wilkinson's Publishing. So thanks to Ricardo Bosey from Australia One, long story there, how I got involved with A1. But, Michael Wilkinson published his book for him. So he said to me, why don't you just have a Zoom meeting with Michael? A great guy, easy to work with. It's your first book. You could self-publish, but why would you when you can go with someone that can, promote it and do everything? They've got the connections, they've got all the framework. And so he sat with me while we did a Zoom meeting with Michael Wilkinson. And he said, just send me what you got. Let me have a read of it. Anyway, and he loved it. And he said, he's been an absolute joy and pleasure to work with. He really has. And, so together with Molly, Susie, Michael and myself, and I pretty much gave the girls free rein. Once I sent the book to them, I gave them free rein. And I just said, that's it. And I couldn't even read it. I've never read my book from beginning to end since I've written it. So I just used to write the chunks, send it off, and that's it. And then, they sort of put it in an order that was more orderly than what I did. And then, between them and Michael, I just let them go for it. And basically, it's due to be out on the shelves. It's going to be on the, Big W, Woolworths are stocking my book. It's going to be on Amazon, Dimix, and a couple of other bookstores. And it's going to feel bizarre, isn't it, when I'm walking through Woolies and I'm like, oh my God, that's my book. That's my book right there.
What's it called? What's the name of the book? What's the name of the bloody book?
It's called Alone. And it's got that picture of me on my boat coming down the face of a wave, which was taken in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean.
That's the photo we've got for your. That's the photo we've got for your stream.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yes, that's on the cover, and it was supposed to be called Solo, but just before they were due to print it, they realised that there's a girl who has just walked around the globe. And her book was coming out around the same time as mine, and hers was called Solo. But hers was going to beat me on the shelf. So they've changed my title to Alone.
Yeah, but she wasn't really solo, was she? Like, she's bumping into people, she's staying at hotels, I'm sure, and you're the solo one. I think Alone's a better name anyway, because there's a Survivor style TV show called Alone. And I think it's called Alone, where they go out, they drop them out in the middle of nowhere, and they've got to survive with the shirt on their back and maybe one hunting knife or something. So that's more aligned. I think it's a better title.
Funnily enough, one of my clients used to watch that show, Alone, and she used to tell me, Michelle, you've got to apply, you've got to go on it. And I said, well, where they dump them? Oh, they dump them in the middle, in some, it could be in Canada, in a, where there's snow and bears. And I'm like, fuck that, no thanks, that sounds fucking horrendously frightening. And she said, you're going to cross an ocean on your own, like, come off it. I said, no, that sounds way more risky than what I'm doing, and no, I'd be too scared to do it. So it's funny, your perceptions, on different scenarios. Yes, I could row an ocean, but would I be game enough to go on that show? No way in the world. I'd shit myself.
Yeah, I'll just row around the ocean by myself for 7-8 months. Yeah, that's way less intense.
I do love this fun fact, though, that at times during my row, the International Space Station is closer to humanity than me. I love that fun fact.
Wow, that is cool. So, Michelle,
yeah.
I'm conscious of the fact that you're relying on solar power to charge your sat phone, and without your sat phone, you can't get key, crucial information that's critical to your survival. So I'll allow you to wrap this up in a minute, but I want to know, how do people find you and how do they track you for the rest of your journey?
So you can go to my website, which is solorower.com, and on there, all the links are there for my tracking device. I do have a tracking device, which requires an app on your phone or your laptop, and the app is called YB Race, so Y for yellow, B for black, and it's actually, Yellow Brick Races. So YB Races is the app that you need to download, and then you need to search My Events, which is Great Pacific Road. And then that shows you every 2 hours you get an update of where I am exactly in the middle of the ocean. It'll give you my lat and long, my position. And you can see my track. You see my track going across the ocean, Sydney bound. I'm aiming for Sydney, which, we won't actually know if I can get to Sydney or, if I have to end up anywhere on the east coast of Australia. We won't know until I'm much closer. And my weather router, Roger Badham, who I have the world's best weather router, number one, honestly, he's phenomenal. His credentials are just off the chart. And I pinch myself all the time that I have him as my weather router. So he's world renowned. He's done the last 40 years of the America's Cup. He routes the number one boat. And he does the crossing every year, the Sydney to Hobart. He does the Formula F1. He routes the Ferrari team and has done for 17 years. Like, he's just got a phenomenal history and credentials, and I just feel so lucky that I have him as my weather router. So he'll decide where he's going to send me closer to, when I'm much closer to Australia. But yeah, if you go to soloRower.com. There's lots of videos on there about my boat, the boat building process, which I got involved with very intimately. And there's, lots of photos, videos, but also the link to the tracker is on there. Or you can just go straight to YB Races and get the app and follow me on there as well. You'll find me on Twitter. I think I'm called Solo Rower on Twitter. But if you just Google Michelle Lee, a lot of stuff comes up now, and you can just, follow links here, there, and everywhere. There's a YouTube channel as well, Michelle Lee YouTube channel. So, and I put just videos of, my preparation to get here was huge. And it was 2 years. So a lot of those videos of, the challenges, the obstacles, some hardship, and then obviously, the good news is we overcame because we're here, we're doing it. So, if you need to be inspired, go to my channels because, they are of challenge and they are of overcoming and goal setting and planning. And I don't hold back. I share all that because I want people to know that you can do anything. You've just got to have that desire. You've got to have the desire to do it. You've got to have the belief in yourself and then expect that it can happen if you do something every day towards it. It's a simple plan. The blueprint is simple. And it just means you just got to take some action and really want it, When you read my book, I share a lot on the power of manifestations, and that's how I've done what I've done. It's, through mindset, and it's through, raising your own vibration and your frequency to attract what you need. These are the messages that I really would love people to sort of get out of what I've done, and to know that, if I can row an ocean, you can do anything. And we've all got so much more in the tank than we think. When you think you've got nothing left. And then I say I had 22 days because, the last 22 days of my Atlantic row were a big struggle, but we got there, So, yep, go to solorower.com.
Well, Michelle, we haven't even scratched really the surface of some of the adversity that you've gone through and the challenges. And what I'd love to do, if you're open to it, is have you back on in a couple of weeks, see how things are progressing, and talk about some of the political challenges that you've had to endure to get where you are today, things that are very close to my heart and certainly to yours. And I think that might be a good continuation from what is honestly, I'm struggling to find a more inspiring scenario that I've been exposed to. And to be so close to you is a real honour and a thrill. And we are so grateful that you're able to take 43 minutes of your day where you need to be rowing and getting that little behind of yours back to terra firma. So we're very grateful. And do you have any concluding thoughts for our audience before we wrap it up today?
Just face each day with excitement. Go to bed each night as if tomorrow you're going on an excursion. Remember those feelings when you were going on an excursion and you're full of anticipation, and you woke up with a spring in your step, and I just face each day with that and with love and joy. Raise your vibration, and I promise you, your world changes very, very rapidly. So the simplest way to do it is to think of those moments where you were in joy and gratitude. Gratitude is huge in terms of raising vibration. And you watch your world change. It's phenomenal. So there you go. Take that away with you, guys and girls. Thanks for listening. Thanks so much for your time. And, just go and love life. Love life.
Ladies and gentlemen, Michelle Lee.